You know, I always remember a Sports Illustrated model told me that when you're in the most uncomfortable position imaginable, that's when you know you're in the shot correctly. And I certainly feel that way now. I mean, look at it. I got this, and then I got this, and then I got this here, even though I'm not using this. And I got my water bottle, which is like in the middle of the shot. It's all messy, but we'll work with it. Hello, this is the FilmGamer Podcast, Season 4, Episode 2, number 36 overall. And today we're going to do a standard box office report, maybe some Letterboxd, some Nintendo E3 stuff, and the social media stuff. You know, I'm still kind of working it out, but I feel I sort of got it this time. And yeah, it will take a while to upload because I'm also going to do video, which I felt like doing because I want to be a professional. So yeah, let's get right to it. The box office for this past weekend, I guess it was a big one because Inside Out 2 came out. It was big. The expectations for it were about, I'm trying to think here. They were the first movie opened the week after Jurassic World in 2015, which kind of feels like a lifetime ago. I saw it in theaters. You can read my review on FilmGamer.com. I didn't like it that much. But the interesting thing is just that I saw... I'll get to that in a second. The interesting thing is that the first one opened in 90, and then because of how the previous box office movies were doing this season, you know, summer season, May and June, they hit under expectations a bit. And my own thought for that is just that the movies didn't seem to many people like they were worth seeing. I'll get into the strike probably as my main subject today, and the effects of it. But basically, how do I put this? The expectations went down, or the company Disney revised the expectations down a bit because after Furiosa underperformed and they had tracking for that Ryan Reynolds movie If, and that underperformed by Paramount, they revised expectations down a little. And then, you know, Bad Boys 4 hit really well. And now this movie hit really well and overperformed. But it's funny to me because the expectations just weren't aligned properly. So let's just take a look at it here. So we have Inside Out 2, 154 million. This is it's only 6 or 7 million less than Barbie, actually. And the interesting thing is that like they had over 10 million ticket admissions, and they never post ticket admissions. The industry movie theater chains, I believe it was AMC that said that it's like the most attended movie of the year so far, the most attended movie since Barbie came out. And, you know, Bad Boys Ride or Die had a good hold there, dropping only 40%, which if you're a big movie, you know, anything below 50% is pretty good. But I had this thought because I get so tired on Twitter of people who are just like, oh, the industry is dying when a movie doesn't open to an insane amount of money. And then, you know, when there's nothing good, people don't go. And because of just how the industry has evolved post-COVID, there just isn't as much product in the theater. Like, you see 3 movies here. You know, a decade ago, there would have been 5. You know, there would have been 3, there would have been a major release, kind of like a sleeper release, and then maybe there would have been, you know, a little something. Even a year ago, there was Elemental, which opened to number 2, and The Flash, which opened to number 1. And now you have 2 movies in a limited release, which I don't really know, but you have 1 major movie release, and that's Inside Out 2, and it just seems now that people just kind of clear the way for Disney when it comes to release dates. But yeah, Inside Out 2, I wonder if I can get into it here. Let me see. It cost how much? Do we have the budget on it? We do not. It's very annoying. I bet you it was a lot. Let me see if I can find it. I got that Sherry Sherry Baby song stuck in my head. That's why I'm humming it. 200 million. Yeah. Who said that it was 200 million? Variety. Okay. So, yeah. Where do they say? Just the 200 film. Give a lot of stuff. Exhibitors believe that the 200 million budgeted Inside Out 2. So that's just the industry reported what it's that. So yeah, in 2015, if I can go back here, if I can go to, this is going to take me a while if I do it, but I will. Disney has owned this date for a while because they had Lightyear, and then before that they had a bunch of stuff. They had Elemental the year previously, and then you see Incredibles 2, which currently has the record for highest opening animated movie. It's actually the last Pixar movie I saw in theaters with my family. I remember I went with my mom and dad because we liked the first one so much and didn't like this one all that much. And then I went with my nephew this time last year to see Elemental, and that was nice. I'll be getting the nephew soon in a few weeks. I'm talking him like he's a product, but he's a good guy. And then, you see we're just going back here. Cars 3, All Eyes on Me, the Tupac movie, 47 Meters Down. People talk about that movie, and then The Rough Night, which people don't talk about because it's not a good movie. But if we go back 2 years, see, that was a year where you had like 3 action movies trying, to when Jurassic World opened, and then you move up a week, it was Inside Out, and then there was even this movie called Dope, which I've seen, and it's actually, pretty dope. I believe the guy who did it was Rick Fumiwa. I don't really know how to pronounce his name, but he does Star Wars television shows now. Anyway, there was just more product. And what's happened last year was that the writers went on strike and the actors went on strike. And it was kind of seen as something at the time in the industry that it's like, oh, they'll go on strike and it'll be 2 weeks. And it lasted for months because it was at a critical juncture with like AI and how it is now. And it was basically like a significant strike that like people knew that the industry was changing, so people kind of put their foot down. And it was just dumb because the people in charge, the AMPTP, who were the collective bargaining representation for all the movie studios, were like put their feet down too. And it was just stupid because now we're living through the strike's effects where there's basically no movies. Movies like Deadpool 2 got delayed. It was supposed to open the summer, and then it got pushed to the end of July. And so we opened with The Fall Guy, and that's not a great movie. And it's not like... I find it weird when people say this, but I kind of get it. It's not built to be like an uber blockbuster. Although what's hilarious is that its price tag is so radically inflated. It costs like 130 to 150 million, and it performs in line with rom-coms. It's pushing about 87 million. We can go back to it right now, actually. Oh, is it out of the top 10? I mean, it's been out for a month, so let's just see if we can go back. It's faster if I do this. So it is at number 8, and it's available for $25 now on rental, premium on demand. And I did not like it at all, but you can see here 88 million. That's about $1 million less than Anyone But You, so it will probably actually make more money than Anyone But You, which was a sleeper hit. The thing is, that movie cost like 15 to 25 million, and this movie cost 150 million. You can see worldwide 170. It still won't make that money back, and that's because, again, movie theaters they 60% of their admissions go towards the movie studio, and then internationally it's like 40%, and then China it's like 25%. So the standard rule is that double the budget between that and double and a half is what a movie needs in order to make profit. So this would have needed to do like 300 million essentially to make a profit. It's absurd. But it performed in line with expectations. It's just the expectations were wrong. So Inside Out 2, Deadline ran an article today saying that it broke all of these sorts of records. And then if you look at the records, it's like number 2 film since this and number 1 film for an animated opening in like-for-like markets compared to Super Mario Brothers. But if you look at the numbers for Super Mario Brothers, the Super Mario Brothers numbers are higher, but they just cut out like, that opened in a few higher markets and made more money, so it like doesn't count. It's just, Hollywood accounting. There's a whole Wikipedia page article on it if you really wanted to take a look. It's not necessary. So anyways, the number 2 movie is Bad Boys Ride or Die, and what's funny to me about that narrative is that there's this bizarre thing that people have kind of been clowned on, I will say, and that is that like audiences were somehow against Will Smith, and it was like a whole race thing because of the slap, and the slap was never a race thing. The most racialized it became was, partly because Will Packer had produced the show, and he's black, and he's known for making not very good movies at all. And the Academy had done this thing, and they'd done it with Steven Soderbergh a few years before, where they would get somebody who wasn't experienced doing live TV but was like a movie producer, because it's like the movie business, to do the Oscars. And Will Packer brought his skills of not making very good movies to live television and made not a very good show. It was a mess. The slap happened. The stage was poorly designed. Wouldn't have happened if it was on a taller stage. It was just an ugly designed show. And from the jump, there were groups of people who were like, it's conspiracy, the slap never happened, blah, blah, blah. If you saw it live on TV, you knew it was real. It's just you felt it. And this is just kind of like the end of that saying we're past that era, because it's been 2.5 years. But it's not like Will Smith faced any real consequences. What happened was this. The slap happens. People were like, I hate Will Smith, as they should, because he committed assault, which is a crime on live TV. And then, all of this meaningless drama. Yeah, the memes that were instant, like, they were that night. They were so hilarious of, like, Oscar the fish going up to slap Marty the giraffe. It's just how quickly people were able to do that, or when they edit the Fred scene from I Am Legend where Will Smith gets out the gun and shoots the mannequin but replace the mannequin with Chris Rock. That was funny. But anyways, what consequences did Will Smith suffer? Some 2 unrelated delays on 2 movies, one of which hasn't happened, and the other was this, which got delayed for like other reasons related to the slap, and people were like, oh no, Will Smith's career is over. And then he had in the can an Apple TV movie called Emancipation, which would be a bulletproof concept of like a slave escaping, ending up fighting in the army, and against his captors and stuff like that. And I watched it, and it's just not a good movie. I like some stuff that Antoine Fuqua does. I do not like Emancipation at all. The only really redeeming effort to it, and you can see it's on Apple TV Plus, it's in black and white, is just that the cinematography is very good by Robert Richardson, but who also shot The Equalizer 3, also directed by Antoine Fuqua, a movie that I actually do like. But yeah, it wasn't a good movie, but it was on streaming. And that was sort of the movie that kind of took the brunt of, we still don't like Will Smith. But the whole thing to realize is that, like, stars are secretly useless. Like, they're good for bringing awareness, but the film is the real star. And if you could do something terrible, But if you're in a great movie, people won't care because the movie is fake and you're real. So if you're in something fake, if you're a really good actor, then you can kind of hide that. We've seen a lot of people who have had shaky careers. Um, like a good example is Emil Hirsch, who nearly strangled a woman to death at Sundance because he was high. Or maybe he has some other problems. I don't know the specifics, but he got put in by Quentin Tarantino Once Upon a Time in Hollywood as Jay Sebring, just like a small role. And it didn't affect that movie really at all. Now, the studio still won't touch Emil Hirsch. He still isn't going to be in a major movie for the rest of his life. He's blown it. But he, still gets that one every once in a while. Another one is Casey Affleck in Oppenheimer. Casey Affleck was, on his way. He won Best Actor, and right around the time they was winning Best Actor, and was already in the can because he was so good in Manchester by the Sea. It's one of the best acting performances of the decade. It's available on Amazon Prime if you want to see it. It's just basically about Casey Affleck, who's not qualified to take care of, this boy after his brother passes, and just him living in Manchester, kind of getting his life together. And it's a very good, very affecting movie. You've probably seen TikTok clips of it, of him, depressed at the police station, turning a gun on. And it's really heartbreaking stuff once you figure out the whole explanation of why this character is this way. But at the time, it was in around 2017 when the Me Too era, like October 2017, where it's like Harvey Weinstein, bam, canceled. Bill Cosby, blam. Bill O'Reilly the month before, bam. It's cooked. And it's like every single week there was somebody coming out about who was being held accountable for their awful behavior. And it was interesting because they all played out in different ways. I remember Aziz Ansari's was like, nah, I don't know, that one was about January and the article wasn't like super well written. And then there was one about TJ Miller, which stuck a bit, but was also about the author, if you read that, like just patting themselves on the back about how hard it was to write that article, kind of lionizing themselves. And yeah, it's just, it gets all complicated and stuff. I'm very pro Me Too, by the way. But anyways, the point is that I read the Casey Affleck article that Mashable did, and you should read it. It's very good. I forget the woman, she's Asian, who wrote it, but I remember seeing the title of the article at the time, and just kind of, as you do when you get exposed to a lot of stuff over time, you're like, okay, here's another one, and I'm just kind of like, oh, here it is, Casey Affleck is next. Is this going to be anything? And I read the article, and it was beautifully written by Mashable, and it really put you in the headspace of like just a victim of Casey Affleck's alleged sexual assault, wherein on their movie that he was doing with Joaquin Phoenix, I'm Still Here, the one where Joaquin Phoenix has the weird beard and sunglasses and stuff they appeared on Letterman for, and just that he had a woman who worked on the film stay with him at his insistence partially, and then she stayed in his house or guest house, and then insisted that she stay in the master bedroom, and as she slept in the master bedroom, he got into bed with her. And just the writing in that so well laid out, like the headspace of this person of like, I am trapped, this is awful. And then it also effectively painted a picture of just kind of like the fraternity brother, kind of attitude that was on set, and it just overall painted Casey Affleck as unprofessional. And it didn't go after, as a lot of these articles try and make the mistake of doing, and a lot of magazines do now, where they have some weird moral equivalency of like, well, we can all agree that so-and-so's acting was always shit, when that really has nothing to do with like them being a bad person. They're two separate things. Somebody's like craft, you don't confuse the art with the artist. I understand how and this is how it works for me going forward. It's like every time I see Casey Affleck in something, I think of that article and I think of that, and I believe it, how it's written. But like, if Casey Affleck were to be so amazing in a movie, I could maybe put that aside for like the 20 minutes that I watch it and evaluate it on its own terms. But it does color the characters that he plays in a certain way, and the best example of that is in Oppenheimer, when he showed up. Everybody in the theater, I saw this in Kingston, was universally uncomfortable, and it's played that way to that effect. But when Casey Affleck shows up in Oppenheimer, it was just the perfect, oh no, I thought we were done with this person. And, you know, Casey Affleck was also in Our Friend, a movie with Jason Segel and Dakota Johnson, about, you know, Dakota Johnson has cancer, and Jason Segel comes and helps out with the kids, and that's a pretty well done movie that's kind of missing a point to it to kind of hook it in, but all the performances in it are good. It's just Casey Affleck is in the space of like, he's done as far as the major studios are concerned, and unless like a big heavy hitter like Tarantino or Christopher Nolan comes in and pulls a favor and is just kind of like, oh, come on. Like, you see him now in the latest movie that just came out, the trailer-wise, The Instigators, comes out on Apple TV. Apple TV, not like a major movie studio, they're technically independent. So, you know, he's there with his buddy Matt Damon in a movie. Looks pretty cheap, as most streaming films do. I might watch it. Although my brother just canceled our subscription to Disney Plus because to Apple TV Plus. They sound so similar. Because it costs $13 Canadian a month for Apple TV Plus when they have nothing. And Tim Cook, if you're listening to this, I doubt you are. Maybe somebody can make a clip of it. But what Apple TV Plus should understand about its product line, because I'm evaluating this along with all of the other Apple products because they're part of the same company, is that when you deliver television episodes week to week, you are inherently delivering an incomplete product. And I know why they do it, because they don't make a lot. There's nothing on Apple TV Plus to justify that price. They're not, you know, Netflix puts out the Shark Paris movie, Under Paris, and it puts out, you know, 4 episodes of Bridgerton, which took 2 years to come out, but that's like an anticipated release. What does Apple TV put out? They put out 1 or 2 episodes of Presumed Innocent, the remake of the Harrison Ford movie starring, directed by Roman Polanski. But this one is starring Jake Gyllenhaal. And I was intrigued, but not intrigued enough to pay $13 a month. Like, $13 is a movie ticket price and a half, basically, on a good, cheap day. And that is not worth it, Apple. So, Tim, you have to look at your product line here. Come on, think about it, Tim. You're a $1 trillion company, one of the most valuable companies in the world. Do you really want to deliver an incomplete product by trying to hide that you don't have a lot on your service? You're not fooling anyone. Customers are smarter than that. Think of what Steve Jobs would have done. He would have given somebody a complete experience from the jump, saying, this is it. This is the only thing you have to get. And if you look at, you know, people binging, which, you know, started with Netflix or a bit before Netflix, with people renting full TV shows from Blockbuster, buying them on DVD. There was a time when people were buying seasons of television on DVD, and evidenced by Leave the World Behind on Netflix. If you go and see a show for the first time that's out, you binge the whole thing, it is like your personality. Why are you depriving people of that product if you're releasing a TV show so you can like spread out your viewership in a quarter? No, you got to go the opposite way, think differently, and drop everything at once completely, because you don't need to prove to anyone in the world like that your product is important. They're already paying for the service. People will wait, and they will wait for the complete experience. So I think that doing week to week, at least the way that Apple does it, is just not a viable product. And I find that a lot of the streaming stuff that they produce, with the exception of Killers of the Flower Moon, which they picked up from Paramount, in terms of technicality, it's well made. The rest of their stuff isn't. It's far too green screened. It's far too garbagey. But that's kind of what we're dealing with, and that's why the strikes are where they are. And that's why Will Smith's movie Emancipation went to streaming, because it was offered a lot of money up front and took it, and the movie studios couldn't compete with that. And what happened was, because they offered people an easy payday, they took it, whereas the standard practice in Hollywood is beyond a certain level, like 20 million, they get a percentage of the profits. Well, streaming doesn't do any back-end theatrical profits. They don't release in theaters most of the time, so there is none of that back-end. So there is no ownership of the success of the movie, and it's shown that when you don't have an ownership over the success of the movie, it doesn't mean as much. Bad Boys Ride or Die, which is the fourth Bad Boys, means more to Will Smith's career than had, Emancipation been, nominated for a bunch of awards. Also, Will Smith is annoyingly, frustratingly bad in that movie. But my point is just that streaming in general tends to go against the good sense of the industry. And that's basically what they were voting on, because when the Screen Actors Guild and the writers both went on strike, the writers were saying, along with the actors, we understand that like the world has changed, and that deal of like appointment viewing weekly on cable is gone. The way in which movies would go to theaters and have long theatrical windows is gone. We need to renegotiate for the future. And the writers renegotiated basically on the TV side, for writers' rooms, and basically more writers have to be paid going forward, and there can't be these mini rooms where basically before a show would start, before it was officially greenlit, they would get the creator, and the creator would maybe take two or three people, write a little there, which is mostly unpaid work. The main creator was getting paid, but his two or three underlings weren't. And then they, would essentially do unpaid work, and then they would get the green light, and then they would get paid. And then that would start. That's over now, where those people who weren't getting paid before were doing like months of unpaid work are now getting paid, which is good. Because the creators of these streamers were basically saying, well, why do we have to pay these things? And it was one of those things where it was like previously unwritten rule, which sort of had to be written, and the studios were just basically, they're all cost cutters. So the streamers said, well, why don't we cut out the middleman? And in the process, it's just the way that movies have been made, which is now more towards streaming, suck. Because there's just less checks and balances. There's less middlemen. You watch a TV show or a movie, look at the set dressing. Go back to like 1983, 1984. Somebody posted this on Twitter. It's just a simple shot of Kurt Russell in the Ron Howard movie Backdraft. And it's just him walking down a balcony, jumping on a car, jumping off a car onto the ground, and shaking the hand of another firefighter. And the background is just filled with other people who walk around. Now you watch, something like Ghosted, and it's a ghost town. You're like, were these people even in the same room when this was filmed? When it cuts back and forth. There's so much CGI. The crowds are gone. And COVID kind of eliminated that a bit, but it's also mostly a streaming thing of them saying, well, we only need the main stars. We don't need anything else, that brings a soul to it. And what I think would rather happen, and I'll use this analogy for a cereal box, is just that when I was a kid, cereal boxes were bigger. And, price, inflation, economy, all that stuff happened. And now it's both more expensive and smaller cereal boxes. I mean, it used to last us maybe 3 days. I was in a family of seven, two adults, five kids. And a box of Cheerios would last us, 3 days with everybody having, a small bowl for breakfast. And now it, you know, lasts me 3 days if I'm having a full bowl. Um, and that's just me. The What I would have preferred, and again, I wasn't buying the cereal, obviously, growing up. But what I would prefer now as a consumer would be if the box, the size had stayed the same size, but the price has gone up. So you're still getting the same quantity. It's just the value maybe has gone down a little, but you're still getting the same product. Instead, we have, what they call, I don't think it really needs this name, but shrinkflation. It's just a code word for ripoff. And I feel that's what we're getting in terms of like movie experiences where they're like, well, we only need these important bits. And they like basically shrink the size of the budget down to like paying the main actors and then everything else is filler when there's no cohesion of it all. So yeah, that's why streamers make not as good stuff because they don't, vet the same way that full studios do. And they're missing a big piece of the pie, which is like going to theaters, which, hey, I don't like going to theaters all the time. I'd be annoyed if I had to do it. But it's important to the economic value of a movie, and Bad Boys Ride or Die, proves that. Uh, People like went out as a group and watched something together. And it people remember. Oh, remember when Will Smith showed up at that showing, which he did. You can see it online, and he just watches the movie with the crowd and then comes out and reveals himself, and everyone's like, hey, and it's like Baldwin Hills, which is like the rich black neighborhood of Los Angeles and stuff, which is like perfect safety area for Will Smith. Like, can you imagine if he did this in like, someplace in a rural flyover state or something that would people would be like, oh, is that, I mean, he's one of the biggest movie stars in the world, and that didn't change because he didn't have a movie that flopped in the meantime that people like rejected from him. So the whole notion that his career was ever in jeopardy is kind of ridiculous because it's like, oh, he's banned for 10 years from attending the Oscars. He can still be nominated for Oscars, but he's banned from attending. Well, that doesn't matter because he already won one. He never needs to go again in his life. So, and now people are saying, oh, should we cut the ban early? And it's like, no, like he committed assault on stage, and in principle that shouldn't be, scooted away. We shouldn't accept that. And that's the most annoying thing is like the way that Will Smith apologized about it was sort of kind of a non-apology. It was like the I've already apologized enough kind of thing when they were like super ungrateful like when it happened and they went to the after party and boogied and stuff like that. And uh, it's just the whole it was mostly the way they handled it after gave me the ick. And then you see if you looked at the behind the scenes of like commercial breaks and stuff, it's like Bradley Cooper rushing to comfort, Will Smith after he's so angry. And it's like he maintained anger because he was embarrassed because he knew he did the wrong thing. But like in his YouTube apology video, he's like, "Oh, I was too, fogged out at the moment. I was too angry." And it's like, so, you know, so you were angry? Like, why do the rest of us have to change to comfort you? It was just like ridiculous. So he kind of suffers no consequences. He gets 1 week, essentially, or you could say a month of like bad headlines, and the jokes continue and stuff like that. And then he gets banned, and then people act like, oh, well, we'll never see Will Smith again, as if that was a realistic thing. And then Bad Boys Ride or Die just got delayed in its filming for a week for other reasons. But it's still coming out because it was the highest grossing movie of 2020 due to COVID. And now this movie comes out and the narrative is like, and it feels like it was helped along. The thing that I find about Will Smith, or rather his career, especially as of late, is that as he kind of gets uncooler, like, Adam Sandler is the same. He makes less good movies. Like, he's not making something as good as Happy Gilmore or Billy Madison ever again in his life. Like, I don't, I'm optimistic, but I don't think Happy Gilmore 2 is going to be good at all. But he's, just churning out Netflix junk for the rest of his life. I even saw his most recent Spaceman movie. It's like, yeah, the special effects are great. I saw why it was, delayed for 2 years, but it's a junk of a movie. I don't like Uncut Gems either. I'm in the minority on that, but it's fine. He's making his own stuff. Hustle was okay. Like, that was something. Everybody gets one, like, a little blip, I guess. But, like, as they get uncool, their methodology of, like, producing movies changes. And with Will Smith, as far as PR strategy goes, he tried and still is kind of hung on to it a bit, being like a YouTuber and social media influencer and stuff. But what I saw with Ride or Die is that it was primarily marketed to a black audience to essentially bail Will Smith out and made it sort of like white people are trying to cancel Will Smith. And if you go back to the night after that the slap happened, the most racist response to it, of course, was from Fox News, where they're like, this isn't the hood. You can't bring that here. And, that's honestly kind of earned a bit because, Jaden Smith's response to that slap happening was like, yeah, this is how our family does it. And it was just like super ungrateful. And then, a Will Packer producing it, and then his response being like, yeah, I told you on Instagram, see, I told you I'd give you a good show. Ratings are up. And it's like, this is not what the Academy is supposed to be about. It is so unclassy. And you're trying to act like it was a good thing and done on purpose. And so that's very, street. But I wouldn't consider that, like, specifically, a racialized black thing. It's not. It's like Jerry Springer. That's a very white, trailer trashy thing. And that's what it was. It was like low class. It wasn't so much a cultural thing, or I guess a cultural thing of like, high society being brought down a bit, I guess. But like, it wasn't a racialized thing. It was just basically somebody turned temporarily like a moment of like the debutante ball into, Jerry Springer. Or somebody turned the Diane Sawyer interview into Jerry Springer is a better way of putting it. So on the marketing, on a sub level, it gets marketed to, directly to black audiences this time. And it's like, you guys have to bail out Will Smith. It's on you because white people are trying to cancel him. And it's like, Will Smith is one of my favorite actors. He's, Will Smith, Tom Cruise, Adam Sandler. Those are like the three biggies, growing up in my childhood who like made hit movie after hit movie after hit movie. They all have over like 16. Tom Cruise is now in the 20s. Will Smith still in the late teens and stuff, of $100 million movies opening in the U.S. People forget that Adam Sandler pumps up those numbers too. Like, he, for a while, like, really delivered, and then he started not to deliver, and he saw the winds change, so he went to Netflix, and he's made money for them ever since. Good for him. His movies, I've hardly watched any of them, aside from Hustle and Uncut Gems. But yeah, he hasn't made a good movie since. So you change your audience a bit. And when the leaked emails happened for Sony a few years ago where they got hacked, it was revealed that like Sony was like overspending massively on Adam Sandler and his friends. And it just wasn't profitable for them to continue that deal with Adam Sandler. And so with Will Smith now, it feels like the pivot from like, I'm no longer the mainstream king. I'm gonna like pivot into like this niche audience, and the niche audience in this case is like black people. And what bothers me about that just is that, I mean, it's fine because it's Bad Boys, but the main thing that bothers me about it in terms of like career optics and stuff is that I find that Will Smith made like a lot of money kind of ignoring black audiences for a while, and like it made stuff basically for white people, as Fresh Prince of Bel Air goes on, and stuff like that. Like that was like a black show, and he's producing Bel Air now and stuff like that. And he did like the Grammy stuff and all that. But the thing that bothers me most is just that he transitioned into making mainstream stuff, which meant making mainstream stuff for like white audiences. But then now, instead of like trying to earn it back and making like a bigger movie, and we'll see. Like he just signed up for a new sci-fi project, according to Deadline, so we'll see if that gets made. But it feels to me like instead of getting it back, it's like he pivots to a smaller niche and is like, okay, you guys bail me out now. And then when it does well, which was sort of already planned to do, like The Last Bad Boys was like a big success. This is a franchise movie. It's an action movie. There's not a lot of competition going on. Like, it was number one at the box office, and the movie that was the number one the week before that was this Garfield in its second weekend. So it didn't have any competition. It does well. It opens slightly less than the last one, and people were like, "Yay!" Movies are back. And it's just with the thing with Inside Out 2 is like Bad Boys, the fourth movie in a franchise, made a lot of money for a major studio. I doubt this will save anybody's job. CEOs will get richer. But like with Inside Out 2, like is anybody's job being saved at like a movie theater really because Inside Out sold over 10 million tickets? I don't think so. Maybe it will delay it closing, but it's not like saving any jobs. I don't think that or Bad Boys is creating any new jobs. So, you know, it's not like how it was pre-COVID when there were so many movies opening, and then so many movies doing well, and it's like, oh, it's good for this genre, it's good for that genre. There's something good here, and a lot more high quality movies are being made. It's just because of streaming, where basically the actors go there for an easy payday, and then, maybe they come back like Will Smith did for Emancipation, and then Bright, which was a terrible film. And he did some, franchise stuff like Suicide Squad, opted out of the sequel, which annoys me because it would have been him in a good movie. They really shouldn't have made the Suicide Squad R-rated. In my opinion, I know it's considered because of the title, but like watching the Suicide Squad, which I really liked, and I'm talking about the sequel, it was very good, but it was just so obvious that Bloodsport, Idris Elba, was a replacement for Will Smith. And like that movie could have been cut down a bit. Like they could have cut around some funny stuff with the with King Shark, eating people. Like that's a good gag. They could have left that in and kind of pushed the edge of it, but like meaningless dick jokes and stuff like that. Like they could have scrubbed those and whatnot, and it could have made money. Now it was in COVID, and it was like also on streaming, so it was always gonna like not do a whole lot of money, because of Project Popcorn, which was valuable for getting movies out, but because Warner Brothers put their 2021 slate in theaters and streaming directly, it was always going to be, a bit of a wash. And we got, Peacemaker out of it, which is cool. And again, the Suicide Squad is a decent movie. It's just that it partly feels like a wasted money. I know I shouldn't be saying that about art. It's a good movie, but like it just annoyed me that Will Smith, it's like, hey, we're gonna make Suicide Squad but good this time. You want to be in it? Nah, that ain't for me. You know, Will Smith doesn't really challenge himself artistically, and As good as King Richard is, it is good in every respect except for him. He is the weakest part of that movie. He could have won Best Picture for it, and if I was voting, I would be fine with that. But his performance in King Richard is like hacky. He's doing like a voice. It's an interesting character. He overacts in it so much, but people had just decided, yeah, this is Will Smith's year. Forget how he actually is in the movie. The movie itself is good, therefore he is good. And we've decided, it's been preordained now, and it's been like that for a few years, that he is the one winning the Oscar. I mean, and now you can, because there's a bunch of meaningless pre-awards, you can just tell beforehand. But yeah, it's just, I don't want to say it's capitalism or something, but it's just the way that Hollywood works now, is just kind of like the in the streaming films in streaming companies, so Apple, Amazon, Netflix, are for themselves and against group success and health of the industry, so they're kind of cannibalizing the quality of it. And then because they're cannibalizing the quality of it, there's less movies out in theaters. And again, I'm not going to bat for theaters. Like, I have terrible theater experiences. They're just as money grubbing as like streaming companies. It's a business. But when movies go to theaters, they tend to be better because they're checked by more people. And you can vote basically with your wallet when you go to the movie theater and say, I support this movie. You know, even if you're just going out with friends and stuff, maybe somebody buys it for you, but somebody buys it for you and they say, I'm supporting this movie because I want to go see this with my friends. It's worth it to me. On streaming, you don't get that. It's just like, oh, this is on. I guess let me watch it with my phone on. You know, I'm totally for, you know, being on your. I'm not for it, but like, you're allowed to be on your phone while watching a movie on streaming. If it's a new movie, I won't watch it. But they don't make very many high quality movies. I watched Under Paris, which was like the #1 movie on Netflix this week, and it's from the director of the Hitman movie from 2007 with Xavier Gens. It's not very good. I got an hour into it, and it fulfills the basic check marks and stuff like that. But it's just an hour of like nothing happening. You know, sort of something happens at the beginning, you know, the fight with the shark, and then it's just like the heartbeat sensor of like, ooh, the shark's coming, and then nothing. And then there's a part where they go into the catacombs, and then they're like, everybody, there's a shark. And then, of course, nobody does anything. And then, no, there's really a shark. And then the way that it eats people is like just a very bizarre way of like, it does nothing, then it circles around, and then it kills somebody in like a really weird way that's animated really weird, and then everybody sprints. And then after everybody like sprints, the shark starts biting, but only bites off their limbs off screen. So it's just, you don't even get to see it eat as it's eating. And then again, it doesn't eat. I guess it spits out, and it's just one shark. So then it's like biting like instantaneously and swimming around, but it doesn't seem to notice. And then it's just, yeah, it's just dumb. It's not well done. And that's the example of what you're getting. Like, that movie wouldn't do well in theaters. Instead, you get a movie like The Shallows with Blake Lively. That is a good movie. Jean-Colette Serra directs it. And it was a decent movie. And people are like, oh, this is good. Let's go see this. And then it sticks around, and yeah, you get that. So, like, if I look for this here, The Shallows, you'll see right here my point. So it came out in 2016, and there aren't many shark movies that come out. They're 47 meters down, you saw a few. But it's like $17 million budget, open to $16 million. And then, you know, $6 million on day one. Pretty decent, like, summer opening for, like, a B movie. Again, this is like a B movie. And weekend one, you know, it drops less than 50%. Plays well throughout the summer. Look at this. Sub 50% drops. And then on July 22nd, what came out then? Yeah, Star Trek Beyond. So, you know, it loses a lot of theaters and stuff, so it drops heavily from there. But because Universal has, Sony has a lot to, hold on. Did they have anything else out that weekend? No, it was just heavy competition of like Ice Age, Lights Out, and Star Trek Beyond. Also, movies that made a lot of money, although for Star Trek it wasn't enough. And they can't hold on to the theaters. But it performed well for several weeks, and it made way more than its budget. So, movies do well. And then even then, like the female-owned Ghostbusters, you can see this year, it, still did relatively well. It made more money domestically, and overall than like the last two male-centered reboot Ghostbusters, because women go to movies too, but it was a bit too expensive, and they also kind of Ghostbusters is tough where it's simultaneously like a kids thing, but also a very adult thing. So they got a bunch of adults who were funny at making adult comedies. And instead of having them do their thing, they had them sort of make an all ages movie, and that's why female Ghostbusters doesn't work. It's not like a good movie, but it's better than, in my opinion, the last two. It doesn't make it a good movie. But I would like to see a Ghostbusters where it combines that. But that was a movie where people voted with their wallets, and they're like, I'm going to see this. No, I'm not. This, that, and the other thing. And again, it was just too expensive, but it still made money. Like, there's this movie that was Hillary's America, The Secret of the History of the Democratic Party. That was a, right-wing movie that people went and saw, and it made some money. And then you had the Purge movies. Like, these are movies that have cultural staying power, and you just don't have that with streaming. So, yeah, anyways, moving on. We have viewer questions, box office report, Letterboxd. Oh, wait, no, I gotta finish this. I gotta finish the year in. So I'll go through this quickly because I'm just using a lot of bandwidth space. So, we have Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes #3. Yeah, it's making some money. It's actually going to cross. It cost 160 million, so it's getting close actually to profitability, I guess. But it's still a lot over the way down, like 100 million less than the last Apes movie worldwide. So it's not doing the best. I mean, it's doing fine, but because it's like the fourth movie in the rebooted franchise. But and it costs less than the last two movies. So it costs less than the last two movies, and it's made less than the last two movies. And it's done fine, but again, it costs 160 million. It's going to make that domestically part of a franchise. You can sell that in a group; it'll do well. But again, not as well as the previous movies. And then you have Garfield. It costs like 60 million. Again, profit deal. It's doing 78. Worldwide, how much is it doing? Let's see here. 218. Wow. People like mediocre stuff. It's just there wasn't a lot for kids to watch. So yeah. And then you have another kids movie. Dropped about a little over half, which is pretty good. They still only lost about 500 theaters, which is good because Inside Out is in 4,400 theaters. If has now been out for 5 weeks, crosses 100 million. This opened at 33 million. People were really disappointed in it, its performance. But overall, it's doing fine. It's just it cost 110 million. So it didn't perform as highly as Paramount wanted to. It was a bit of a risk for them. It didn't quite pay off, but it might do well on it might go to Paramount Plus and do really well, or it might sell really well to other streaming services when they license it out, or it might do well on video, it might do well in rental. So kids movies, again, when stuff goes to theaters, when a movie goes to streaming, that's it. So it's just a really puzzling revenue model. It's okay, does this drive more subscribers? Does this drive more growth? And every movie is just kind of part of one net. But when a movie goes to theaters, it's kind of a great thing because it's the similar model of you're selling something to somebody and they don't own it. you're just selling it to them and they're keeping it. But a movie goes to theaters, you make money. A movie goes to rental home video, you make some more money. Movie goes to TV, you make more money. That's how it used to be. And then now you also have premium rental where it's like it just came out for $25 to rent. And people can pirate it. So seeing if, which stands for imaginary friends, if you want to see that movie, you can, if you have a friend, you could probably find somebody who can pirate it, or if you don't care about the money, some people don't, $25, or to find, 5 people who want to see it. Then it's like, yeah, sure, I'll watch this. Somebody, pay the streaming services, again, Amazon or Apple TV Plus, or your cable company actually gets a piece of that too. Um, and the companies that make those movies love that because they apparently get a much bigger split from the cable companies than they do movie theaters. Like, they keep about 60% from the movie theaters here in North America, and then, apparently it's like they get to keep like 80% or something. I don't know. It's a generous amount. So you see movies now coming earlier to video on demand at a premium price because they're like, we already just did the marketing for this, so it's fresh in people's minds. If it comes to us for like $25, then that's like a really fast way to recoup their investment. So that's why movies are coming to video faster. But it's like theaters, they pay premium video on demand, they pay regular video on demand where it's like $6.95. They pay again home video, maybe after somebody's rented it, they want to buy a physical media, DVD, Blu-ray, 4K, sell it again, special edition, sell it again, TV rights, sell it again, streaming rights, keep it on Netflix for 6 months, sell it again, goes to Amazon, sell it again, goes to Tubi, sell it again, so that's how movies make money down the line. There are movies that like years later they do really well, and then there are movies like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from last year where Paramount bought the rights to the Ninja Turtles 10 years ago, and like, yeah, it made a decent profit. Like, it cost about 80 million and then made like 118 million and stuff, but the main moneymaker for that was the merchandise that it sold. They had a cut of the merchandise, and that's how it made money. So there are all sorts of ways to make money when you're making a movie. This next movie, The Watchers, starring Dakota Fanning, about a girl who ends up in a forest where everything in the forest, all the mad creatures can look and see them, but they can't see the creatures, or something like that. Anyway, interesting premise. Apparently it doesn't quite pull it off, but M. Night Shyamalan was with Universal Pictures, and he decided to go to Warner Brothers because they would fund his daughter's movie. So him being the dad of the year, he decided to take his next movie, Trap, which again I'm excited for. Comes out in August 2nd, moving up a week. He decided to make that at Warner Brothers so that they would fund his daughter's movie. And then in Trap, his other daughter is like the main singer in that movie, who also has contributes to the soundtrack and stuff. So he's supporting both of his daughter's dreams. Dad of the Year, M. Night Shyamalan. And then Furiosa, Mad Max Saga. Yeah, not doing well. Comes to premium video on demand in the U.S. at least. I think next week, if not this week. But I enjoyed it. Didn't enjoy the theater experience, but as I was watching it, I'm like, this will do well on home video. And you have The Fall Guy again, 88 million, close to Anyone But You, but too expensive. Strangers, horror movie. Of course, it's hugely profitable. Then you have Fathom Events, who interestingly makes these, theatrical events. And Lord of the Rings getting re-released. Good for Warner Brothers because they, or the New Line division, because they made the movie. The guy at the time, Bob Shea, bet the whole company's future on like spending something like $270 million on making these movies, because they had this deal with New Zealand where all the props and everything were made before. They liked the test of what they did. They struggled with the cast because Aragorn got replaced 2 weeks in, but They had all the props and set built, location scouted. Everything was planned. The books had a built-in fan base, and they were able to film back to back to back. And of course, obviously, history was made. It was all paid off for them. I remember my dad taking me, and Harry Potter came out the month before, and he took us to Harry Potter. And he took me to Fellowship of the Ring, and both times I'm like, what is this? Because I'm like 6, you know, or I'm 7. No, I think I'd be 8. Yeah, I'd be 8. And I'm like, oh, the Lord of the Rings coming out, and I'm like, oh, okay. And it's like all the kids have to go, so I have to go, or get to go. So I'm kind of like, oh, this is an adult film, but I'm for it. Like, it's kind of boring, but there are these cool parts with the troll and stuff like that. I like that. And so I like it, and then we go and see the Two Towers, which is, again, kind of boring, but when you're in the theater, you're paying attention. Like, a movie has your full attention, so it's, like, boring, but you're into it. So a movie has to be, like, extra boring to be boring. The Two Towers is very shaggy in that regard. Like, the first half of the Two Towers leading up to, like, the Helm's Deep battle is, like, tough. Like, it is a tough sit. And then, like, particularly with the Ents and the Treebeard and stuff like that, it's like, okay, how many scenes, Peter, do we need of, like, these giant trees walking around? The reveal of them is cool. Them picking up Pippin is cool. You know, hearing nobody's on your side and where you stand in the conflict and that you're apathetic, that's cool. You know, do I care about all your friends? No, because we know from before that Sauron, ripped all the trees down from Fangorn Forest. So we're just waiting for you to decide to answer the call and stuff like that. Like your giant trees, of course you can kick ass. But like again, the 10 or 12 minutes that they spend on that is really annoying. And then hearing like Pippin, I believe, yeah. I always get confused between the two because they're a package deal, but like him getting mad at Treebeard, like we have to decide, while they're speaking, in their and it's like anytime in a superhero movie or something when the regular guy gets mad at the superhero, somebody who has immense power over them, which is, true in real life for some people. But he's just like, I'm getting angry now. Look at me getting angry. And it's like, the man, Treebeard could stomp you out, man. Like, it's just, I can go without that whole thing. I think that they gave Tom Bombadil, who's, like, in the novels, like, that speech to Treebeard and stuff. And that's part of that blending because they're in that area of where Tom Bombadil was. We can actually, if you want to know more about that, you can look at or listen to one of my earlier conversations from 2 seasons ago where a film nerd and a scholar debate Lord of the Rings, talk about Lord of the Rings. But anyways, number 10, number 11, like, it's not a whole lot of money, but it's money. And Fathom Events is very good at putting on those events. And yeah, number 12 is Tuesday, an A24 film about Julia Louis-Dreyfus as a son. Good grief, he's very imaginative, and it's very folkloric fantasy kind of film. It's really well reviewed, but I can't describe it or really do it too much justice, so I won't. I'll just say Julia Louis-Dreyfus in a well-reviewed film about her child's drawings or something like that. They or she is going through grief. And it's just kind of one of those of like, this looks incredibly stupid, but I think the filmmakers might pull it off type deal. So, yeah. And then just want to mention Challengers at $49 million. This movie cost $55 million, way too much, but good Zendaya got paid. $94 million overall. I can't wait to see it when it finally comes to Amazon Prime, because now the streamers and stuff who make movies that go to theaters have gotten wise and are like, okay, well, we need a bit of a longer tail. We can't just drop our movies on streaming because we're cutting off our own grosses. Something that we've been telling them forever, but they're finally listening. And then, of course, Taro 18 million, made a lot of money. In a Violent Nature made a lot of money for an independent film. So yeah, that is the box office report. And that's the end of that chapter. Okay, so Letterboxd report. I saw one full movie that I've seen since Furiosa. Again, I've been on a slower kick. I've seen TV episodes. I'm kind of like, is this different than me, going on a kick of reviewing a lot of films? Because I don't really ever feel a lot that different. Like, when I see a movie and it's a great movie, I feel energized and stuff. But, and I haven't seen a great movie in a while. Furiosa was supposed to be it, but I found it just fine. So this is the first full movie that I've seen because I quit, Under Paris an hour in and watched House of the Dragon, which again flirts with being good, and it's the most important movie or television project that Warner Brothers is making, so they poured a lot of money in it for it to be good. But there's just no likable characters on House of the Dragon, and last season the conflict could have ended instantly with the old lady frying the Greens, who are the bad guys, and she could have done it at very little cost to herself and ended the conflict. And just when they could end the conflict of a TV show and decide not to is when I'm out on a TV series. So that's what I thought of that. So anyways, I watched this movie. It's Aftershock. It's from director Nicholas Lopez. Eli Roth produced it, co-writes it, and stars in it. It is about the 2010 Chilean earthquake. It uses that as a setting for like a natural disaster, cheap natural disaster exploitation film. And it's supposed to be based or inspired by that, in which some prisoners from a local prison, have a ride and break out of that. So this movie is interesting to me. I wanted to watch it for a while just because I like disaster movies, and because, I grew up and when I was 10 or 11, The Day After Tomorrow came out, and really liked that movie. Good special effects, good music. People laugh. There's like a scene where they outrun the cold, but it's a cool scene. I mean, what do you want? Anyways, so that was the standard of like natural disasters movies. So it's never been filled. And this is like a super cheap exploitation film. Harvey Weinstein and his company produces it. And the interesting thing about this movie is that for the first half hour or so, it's just like Eli Roth and his two buddies traveling in Chile and meeting these girls and, just talking to them at parties and stuff. And I'm kind of like weirdly into it because I like these, like, this is like a 3 a.m. on Netflix movie. Like, it's 3 a.m. or 2:30, and you're like, I can't go to bed, but I want to watch a 90-minute movie. And I saw this on YouTube on VVS Films, who were the distributor of it on YouTube. And the downside is that it is partly Chilean, so it's, subtitled, even though Eli Roth's character doesn't know, Spanish or whatever language that they speak. So there are, like, I wouldn't say entire scenes, but there are exchanges where it's entirely in Spanish. So I was for the, opening part of just like this guy who's a dad, away from his daughter, but like he's just, trying to have a good time, and he kind of successfully. And it's funny to me of like how unrealistic it is that it's like just these three guys who meet three separate girls, and they all kind of like line up with each other's personalities and have fun. And that part of like you meet up with a group of people, vacation friends, that's realistic and stuff. But it was just unrealistic in the sense that like those high school party movies where, craziest night of my life, blah, 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 everything goes right, super whatever. And I realized that like one of my favorite high school party movies is, it's funny, I have a halo, I just realized. When I'm leaning back so I don't cut off my head, I put my chair down to the lowest part, because then this light will expose. But anyway, and then I have a nose hair on top. See, these are the problems when you decide to go video for your latest episode. But Project X is written by Michael Bacall or somebody like that. Let me just pause it here for... Yeah, I'm right. I shouldn't have doubted myself. It was Michael Bacall. Anyway, he wrote Project X, which is the ultimate party movie. And what's funny is that, like, he was asked, "What did you ever have any party stuff like this?" And he was like, "No, I was like a nerd who stayed in." So that made me like experience this again. And the way that they made this movie essentially was they filmed it on the Warner Brothers lot. They still had noise complaints and stuff like that, but they basically had everybody party for real at this place for like days and weeks on end, and just had all of them record in their phones. And the director was like, "Yeah, it was cool, when we were filming it." And then I was seriously questioning my life choices when I'm in the editing bay, and it's like somebody had their phone on in their pocket and forgot that they had it on and just partied. And it was like a waste of time. But I really enjoy that movie, Project X, and it is created by a guy who none of this happened to. So really, it's like the nerds like me who imagine stuff for the movies that like then fuel the dreams of kids, not knowing that like most of that one crazy night party session where you meet the perfect girl or the perfect guy and stuff, and you do meet like nice people like that, but you never meet somebody who is like the soulmate that you'll spend the rest of your life with. Yeah, you'll meet like a cute girl, and maybe you'll make out with them a bit and exchange niceties and stuff like that. But it's not like magical material. Yeah, so it's like what you're seeing, the movies that you grew up watching, that dream that you had, it was like most likely written by somebody who never experienced that, who's imagining what the best thing would be. Although, maybe I should have somebody who parties on the podcast and hear what they think about party movies and their accuracies, you know. But like that escapism, basically what I'm talking about, is what I like. For that reason, I was into the first little bit of Aftershock. It obviously the earthquake then happens, and then it kind of, there's a moment of panicky and nature, and it's like we gotta fight and survive and stuff like that. And then it's interesting of like, okay, now we're into the real movie, and then the movie kind of runs out of ideas. Like, it stops taking its time, and then it's like, okay, we got to move these chess pieces on the board and stuff like that. And then it brings into the prisoners, and I just find that part of the movie doesn't work at all, because it's just, I hate movies which shoehorn in, like, the human beings are the evil ones, and it just has people be unreasonably evil, which, granted, if you've ever spent time online, people can for sure be unreasonably evil, but it's kind of like, this is where it hangs the exploitation stuff, and it's just stupid, because it's like, oh no, a rock falls on somebody's stuck, somebody has to go get help, and then the bad guys come in and somebody has to hide, and then the bad guy is bad to the guy that's trapped, and the people that are hiding like feel bad and try and run away, and then, oh no, one of them gets caught, and it's just like stupid. And then there's this pretty distasteful scene of like sexual assault, because, and I've thought about this, I'm like, why is this so distasteful? And it's probably where the majority of the bad reviews in this movie comes from, because it's like a female character who we've spent some time with gets basically, and I'm spoiling it so it's like less traumatic for you, gets like sexually assaulted, and then pretty much afterwards like gets up, runs away, and then gets shot in the back and dies. And you could say that that's part and parcel with the exploitation subgenre and stuff. So it's like, yes, it is completely in bad taste, but exploitation genre films by their nature are like that. So what could this have done? And I think about the movie Revenge. That is a movie directed by, I think it's a French woman, and it's about a woman who is sexual assaulted and gets revenge on them. Very, I spit on your grave and stuff. But it was like incredibly well reviewed. It's an incredibly unique, uh, has a unique visual style, very like 80s blood soaked and stuff. Uh, you know, um, I hate using this term, but like male gazy, because male gaze is something that we were taught in film school that is relative to 1950s films and how noir films were made. So it was like specific to that genre, and now people just kind of use it as a textbook term to sound smart, meaning like male gaze bad, you know. And it's just, that's not really part and parcel with like how the term was developed, but it's just how it's used now. But anyways, that movie Revenge used that gaze of like men gawking, leering over women or whatever as part of its like text, and did it really well. So it's like you both as the viewer like see the sexualized version, the desire of this character, but then also are shocked by when the assault happens and stuff. But then it shifts narratively to like the point of view of the female and explores like her fighting back in a way that's like meaningful and stuff like that. So it's like, why doesn't this work in Aftershock, or why didn't it do it? Because there are ways that you can do that kind of thing in like a small way. And the reason that bothered me is that like the movie is called Aftershock, and the tagline is like the only thing more scary than Mother Nature is human nature. So it should, especially through the villains who are just escaped prisoners, explore that dark side a bit, like through their actions, have them do bad stuff. And they do that stuff, but it's like up and to the left. That sexual assault scene that I talked about is like off and in the corner weirdly, and it like cuts to it, but it's there and is basically like the director, and I'm calling him out, like Nicholas Lopez, didn't have the balls basically to like do what Revenge did. And granted, Revenge came out several years afterwards, so maybe that movie learned from this, who knows. But it's basically like, oh, we gotta fill time and give this like cheap, thrilling, bracing sequence that's very cheap and not very thrilling, where it's like this girl being violated and stuff like that. But they have it like off and into the left, so you know that it's happening, but you like don't see it, and it's more like gross in that way. And I think, and I don't know. I haven't made the movie, so it's like I try not to judge. But my thing, my school of thought, is that if you are doing something and it's part of the subject line, like human nature and stuff, and you're going to have a scene that explores like sexual violence of that some kind, I feel that your movie should in some way either explore the violence aspect in just a cursory way, or explore the sexual side or whatever. And it was just, it felt like the movie kind of copped out of like, oh, this is maybe why some of you guys are here. It's like a Harvey Weinstein produced film. I don't know what they were thinking. It's just kind of like, it's a 90-minute film. We got to fill a time with something. So they have this scene in it, and it's just odd and out of place. And had they like committed to it in a way that like The Last House on the Left does, which is just like it stops the movie in its tracks and then kind of becomes about that character like reaction to it in her journey and stuff like that. So for them to basically have that traumatic scene and then end it for that character immediately, and not explore like that character's journey or motivation, or the perpetrator's like journey or motivation. It's like this is like something that happens in the middle of your movie. It's not seen very well. It's not really addressed or dealt with at all. And then it's gone. It's like that's why it doesn't work. It's just something that happens in the middle of your movie. It's not filmed or addressed really well. And if it was like if you're doing an exploitation film, really it should just be head on, or else you're just copping out. So I don't know. I don't, you know, it could also be one of those things, and I'm probably describing it as worse than it is. Because a lot of the reviews, like, I didn't think too much of it when watching it. I'm just kind of like, oh, this. And then, you go on Letterboxd and you see a lot of people have an issue with it. And it's just like, is this just an online thing? Because a lot of times people talk about movies on film Twitter now where it's like mostly an online thing. And then you talk a real person about it. It's like, yeah, a real person would watch this and not have an essay, Letterboxd essay on their, treatise of what they thought about it. It's just people like me who have time on their hands to devote like several minutes to a movie that made very little amounts of money. It made less than probably $100,000 in theaters. It had like a minimal release, didn't do well at the box office, and then 10 years later, over 10 years later, I'm just talking about it now just because I remember seeing the trailer when it came out. So yeah, it's just like, is this a real issue of concern? No. But yeah, Aftershock, only movie that I saw that's really new beginning to end. And like, I like the touristy parts at the beginning where it's just like a guy and his friends and him, hitting on women at a party. And like, there's a Selena Gomez cameo, which you can see. I put it up on TikTok just because it's funny. It's like Selena Gomez during her perfectly bothered look. She's in it as a cameo, and it's like she's being hit on by Eli Roth. And I don't know, I thought it was an amusing scene, put it up on TikTok. I always put up the best scenes of a movie that I see if it's not, already fully featured on my social media pages. So that's why to follow me at FilmGamer on TikTok, if you like. And the movie is available on Prime Video. It's available on Tubi, and it's also available on YouTube on VVS, is the Canadian distributor's YouTube channel. And that was probably the worst way to watch it because it didn't include subtitles. So again, maybe somebody would enjoy it more watching it in subtitles, but it was like one of those where it's just kind of like, like, it doesn't have subtitles, but I can kind of make it through this. And most of the time, film is a visual medium. So, it's like you can vaguely tell what's going on. And it's like, a genre movie, a shock exploitation movie. So, if it's bad, then it's bad because it's like depending on dialogue and stuff. But you should be able to follow it, and anybody with a rudimentary understanding of film grammar can. It's just not the most ideal experience watching it on there. So yeah, watch it on Tubi. Like most things, the most watched streaming service last month. Although every single mention of that does not include Netflix, which just drives me crazy because Netflix is the most watched. Is it being more or less watched than Netflix? I don't know. Yeah. Brief shout out to the movies coming out next week or this Friday. The Bike Riders, directed by Jeff Nichols. He did Take Shelter with Michael Shannon and Jessica Chastain. That is a decent movie about Michael Shannon who thinks there's going to be a big storm. He pours all of his finances into making a fallout shelter for his family at great cost to him, and is seen as a lunatic. And it's just like a well-acted piece with Jessica Chastain and Michael Shannon. The director also did the movie Mud with Matthew McConaughey and Reese Witherspoon. That's pretty decent. He and Ty Sheridan is also in it, worth watching. He did a movie, Midnight Special, which is interesting. That movie is about a kid with superpowers and his dad that goes to lengths to protect him from a cult that's on the run. And it has, like, it's an experiment. It has zero exposition. in it. There is nothing that is explained. It's just in progress from the beginning and keeps going. So I found that like just a really fascinating exercise. Michael Shannon is in that again. There's the kid, and then his brother is played by Adam Driver. So it's just kind of one of those before he was famous kind of movies. Kind of interesting. I wonder if Adam Driver likes sci-fi, because he also did 65, which was a totally serviceable, okay movie that's like not really great, but yeah. And then, Inside Out 2, need I say more? And then, well, I will say about Inside Out 2 is that Mindy Kaling and Bill Hader were supposed to be in it. They were in the first one, and Disney lowballed them because the first movie made like nearly $1 billion, probably made over $1 billion since then for Disney, and they lowball Bill Hader and Mindy Kaling, and Bill Hader's like, I'm Barry, and Mindy Kaling's like, I'm the Mindy Project or whatever, and I'm Velma and stuff, and we got stuff going on. We're big deal as Disney. Don't lowball us. You need us. And then Disney is like, actually, we don't need you. And then they're not in the movie. And then they hired Debris, and they hired Maya Hawke, and they basically replace, you know, those two actors who are gone because corporations don't give a crap about people or individuals. So yeah, they'll be fine. Bill Hader and Mindy Kaling, they got other projects going on. But yeah, corporations replace them. And then Thelma, which is about a woman who gets ripped off, played by June Squibb, who you might have seen. She was Oscar nominated for a movie called Nebraska, and has been in a couple of stuff since. But it's about a woman who gets scammed, and she teams up with screen legend Louis Gossett Jr., Academy Award winner for Officer and a Gentleman, recently passed on. Anyway, they team up together and they go and fight the scammers. It's kind of like the low-budget indie version of The Beekeeper, and it's incredibly well-reviewed out of Sundance, so yeah. And then you have The Exorcism, which is about an actor played by Russell Crowe who is making a movie about an exorcism, and exorcism things start to happen around him. This movie was in the can a couple of years ago, and then the last exorcism, or sorry, the Pope's Exorcist comes out, is a surprise, kind of a sleeper hit for Russell Crowe. So this movie comes out in June now, and people are like, oh, was Russell Crowe working through some stuff that he's, made 2 Exorcist movies, but yeah, the reviews on that seem to be pretty solid. Let me just see what they're about here, because it's like, for a horror movie, it's solid. Gradually it goes to hell in all senses of the phrase, yeah. This is his second movie. Solid for the first hour, things go downhill. So it has a decent start, and I like movies that have a decent start. It's interesting that it's like, and I've seen this with a lot of movies, where it's like, it doesn't know really what it's had, and it wants to fall back and find its footing on like cliche and stuff, but really being more original is its strength. So yeah, I'll be interested to see that movie. For sure. Yeah. So that concludes that part. Okay, so the final main subject I want to talk about, which happened just today, was Nintendo's E3 sort of thing. They had a press conference. Now, E3 traditionally happens in June. What happened was E3 is no longer happening. Last year, they gave it to a company called Reed Pop to look after, and they couldn't look after it, and it got canceled. So the annual conference in which all of the, video game developers and publishers meet together, and, it's downtown Los Angeles Convention Center. It gets rented out. People go play video games. Video games are announced. People get all excited. It makes mainstream news headlines. Video games are more popular in their own right now, particularly since the pandemic. So it was less needed. So this year, which is the second year, I believe, without E3, PlayStation had a State of Play, and then that kind of underwhelmed. They did announce Lego Horizon Adventures, which is a Lego version of Horizon Zero Dawn and Horizon Forbidden West. It's about a girl named Aloy who's an orphan, and she shoots bow and arrow, and it's the green apocalypse, and it's like 1,000 years in the future, and it's a third-person action game and stuff like that. First game, I played it, did well. Beautiful looking game by Guerrilla Games, the makers of Killzone. Second game, I haven't played yet. It's a cross-gen game for PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. And they are looking to expand because they both did well, both entries. And to do that, they need to appeal to kids. So they made a Lego version, and it's coming out on PlayStation and Nintendo platforms, but no Xbox. And then the other game that they announced was Astrobot, which is like another kid's mascot. Think like Crash Bandicoot for this generation. That's coming out this fall. So they came out with that, and people were like, oh, good, but underwhelming from PlayStation. Then Xbox comes out. Out of the gate, they have DLC for Starfield, disappointing game. But this looks like Dead Space. It looks like a completely different thing. And then it's Starfield DLC, Shattered Space. And people are like, oh, they're not abandoning Starfield, even though, it was like a 7 out of 10 game and stuff like that. And because, the amount of resources that Bethesda poured into that, they're not going to give it up. They're just going to keep going until the game is good, which is kind of the modus operandi. If you can stick with a game until it gets good, No Man's Sky, famous example of this game, hyped for hours on end, people get in the game, they buy it after years of waiting, and it turns out to suck. And then the developers just keep adding content. They keep adding content. And eventually people are like, oh, this game is good. And Final Fantasy XIV Realm Reborn was like that, and a couple of games have kind of done that sense of like, oh, it's good now. So that's what they're doing with Starfield. And then they also announced Perfect Dark, where the main character is like kind of a bit older. She looks a bit more like this protagonist from Call of Duty. I believe her name is Joanna Dark, is the character from Zero Dark 30, but if I can pause it here. Yeah, her character's name from Call of Duty is Kate Laswell, and it's like Laswell is a queer character from Call of Duty, and that's the first sentence about her, which is funny, not that she works for the CIA. There's nothing on here, just that she reveals that she has a wife. That's just funny to me. She's like the Overwatch, basically, in Call of Duty. But this is what she looks like. And then if I can go here to Perfect Dark, a bit of a younger sort of version of that character, but still similar. It's not usually for me to go after the looks of like a female design of a character, but I just kind of find it interesting because the original Joanna Dark was like a lot younger. So when comparatively with Splinter Cell, when they aged with Sam Fisher, it was like the same actor who was voicing it the whole time, and they made him gray and kind of scruffy, and there isn't that same continuity with this character. Like the Perfect Dark last was good in the N64 era, from like 1998 and stuff, and they had this sexy trailer for it, which I won't bring up now just because I don't want to. And I just found it weird or cringe when anytime in the 90s when there was like 5 pixels on screen, they try and make a character or female character like sexy, like they'd give Lara Croft just giant pointy breasts, which apparently was a mistake. But it's just kind of funny because it's like the fidelity of the characters does not support your wet dreams or whatever. It's just like ridiculous to me that they try and make characters sexy, or that people would find that they were sexy just because they, it's not a real character or a real person. And I don't know, maybe I'm getting into the weeds here on it and stuff like that. But there was an advertisement for like Perfect Dark, a live action commercial trying to make this character sexy and stuff like that. You can see actually with the character here of like the original, it was like a lot younger. So I'm just basically curious of what they'll do with this character. I hope it's more than one line on, Wikipedia fandom with Joanna Dark and stuff. This is basically, a complete reboot of it because they had Perfect Dark, which basically came out because the developer behind it, Rare, had a bunch of stuff with the GoldenEye video game that they wanted to do. So they made use of that and created this game, Perfect Dark, which takes place in the near future, where Earth has been struck by a series of disasters, and they have the secret agent, Joanna Dark, come in. And basically was made with Nintendo. The developer Rare, who has worked closely with Nintendo, they have good multiplayer and stuff like that. They get bought out, the developer Rare, by Microsoft. So they take that intellectual property with them. They come out with a game called Perfect Dark Zero at the launch of the 360. It's not very good or very well reviewed. And they've done nothing since. And they've talked about, we're going to do another Perfect Dark. We're going to bring it back. And you just hear nothing about it. And then now we see the first gameplay for it. And you can see it basically looks a bit like, Deus Ex, Dishonored, first-person, simulator and stuff. It looks like it could be fun, but, I look at it and I'm just like, well, I've played Deus Ex, so, hopefully this is good. But I don't like looking at a game and being like, oh, I know exactly how this will play. So, I mean, as far as, creative ideas are, I didn't see really anything that impressed me much. I'll just see if anything kind of pops up through Xbox, because I want to go through maybe some other stuff. Like, they had Fable, they had Indiana Jones, which really annoyed me because they went for, is this just going to be a video of them talking? They had a video for Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, new Indiana Jones game, and I like Uncharted and all that, but they basically had a 20-minute talking session rather than gameplay of this. And I just want to see a gameplay thing. I don't want to see a cutscene of oh, Dr. Jones, you're in it now and stuff. And then there's this weird thing about it, too, where basically he looks like Harrison Ford, but he talks like a guy that sounds similar to Harrison Ford, Troy Baker. And the graphics aren't super great. Really, it's more with the style lighting they decided to do. That could be fixed. The Digital Foundry talks about it and stuff. But it feels like Indiana Jones approximation. And then you have a first-person shooter doing a third-person adventure game in first person, and it's just, I wonder if it's gonna land or not. So yeah, we'll have to see about that. Takes place in between probably Temple of Doom and Last Crusade, I'm guessing. I mean, it really superfluous. Yeah, in between Raiders and The Last Crusade. Okay, so that's the same time as Temple of Doom. I don't know. So in between all the original trilogy, wow. That has any significant impact on the story at all? Probably not. It's like when people say, Temple of Doom is actually a prequel to Raiders. And it's yeah, okay. That's a cool thing, I guess. Doesn't really matter, and Harrison looks a bit older, so. I mean, I like adventure games. I'm super up for it. It's just kind of they're taking a first-person shooter and then making it into, an adventure game. It feels like they're not the best developer for it, but Wolfenstein, the last two games done by this developer, Machine Games, they were surprisingly deep games for their story. So I'm curious if they can kind of take that with what they know in their characters and do something good with it. I'll be interested to see if Xbox pulls it off. And then they also had Fable, which they're working on from the Forza Horizon developers are doing that. That's cool. I wonder if they have anything else. I mean, there were a lot of third-party games that they came out with. I'm really into Stalker 2, Heart of Chernobyl. This is developed by a Ukrainian developer in Kiev that had to move, CSG World Games, and it's just, post-apocalyptic first-person shooter. I used to, um, you know, joke about this game with my friends, when really it was the expansions that we were talking about. So now them doing a proper like sequel is cool. I've never played the originals actually, but I've played the Metro games, which plays very similar to this. It's just more of an Eastern Europe style response to Fallout, and it's just much more linear first person shooter, but it looks cool and it has style, and I very much look forward to it. It is like really the only proper next gen game I'm like really looking forward to, because it's a game that, again, that I joked with my buddies at in high school about. The one time we just were all like, so Stalker 2, and then we're all like, oh, stupid stuff like that. But Metro Exodus was the last physical game I bought on Xbox One at full price. So, maybe that could be that for Xbox Series, but I don't know. When I log into Xbox now, there's a full page ad, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not paying for this. So maybe I'll just wait the 3 months and get a PlayStation, because Xbox is releasing all their stuff multi-platform anyways. Yeah. Let's see here. Avowed, yeah, that's their, first person, Elder Scrolls isn't ready yet, so we'll do this kind of game. It looks exactly like Elder Scrolls with a bit, brighter painterly colors and stuff like that. But, like, yeah, that's what you're getting, basically. Rare, I believe, is making this as well. Is anybody gonna mention it? No. Because I get confused between their game and there's a similar game that Rare is making, and then Obsidian is making the other. I think this might be the Obsidian game. And then now I gotta find out, because I've talked myself into it. Okay, let me just see. Yeah, Everwild was the game that I was thinking of, that Rare was doing. And I apologize for cutting my head off here. God, that's really bothering me. My stance is just killing me here. Ugh. Ugh. Boo. Anyways, so yeah, that's what Xbox was working on. And Avowed is next. So the fact that they have two games that are like look very similar to me, and I can barely tell the difference and sound like they were named by Chat GPT. Yeah, it's going great for Xbox. They are the world's most valuable company, or were until today when Nvidia overtook them, and yeah, they still can't get their act together. But yeah, Gears of War they came out with. I'm interested in a Gears of War prequel. I always have been, but like Gears 6 is still waiting in the wings, and I want a finish to that story. And am I gonna get it? Not for another several years, so that's really annoying to me. But like I'll play the new Gears. That seems cool, and then Fable. So like they had a decent showing. They also came out with a game South of Midnight, which on purpose runs at 12 frames a second during cutscenes, but then runs at full 30 or 60 frames per second. I hate that style, that rotoscoped style. It always seems uninspired. I'll get to Nintendo in a minute, but it's good. I like it when they improve content, like with Shattered Space or Fallout 76. Again, haven't played that, but interested in it. And they showed Call of Duty Black Ops. Again, that's cool. Let me just get some of that on there. Good lighting effects. Seems like a fun time. I've played all the Call of Duty campaigns. I'll play this one for sure. But like, I'm not seeing any new gameplay ideas. It's like I see this, I know how to play it. It doesn't excite me. Nintendo Meanwhile, they came out with the big guns. They came out with Metroid Prime 4, which was a game that I bought a Wii U for. It didn't end up coming out for Wii U. And, like, you see this, and it starts out, and it looks almost like Halo. It's like, oh, Nintendo doing a first-person shooter? What? That's one of the reasons why I got a Wii U was because the Metroid Prime trilogy I wanted to play. And so it didn't end up happening. They came out with Other M, and that was like not good. But it's like a first-person alien shooter game, and yeah, I look forward to playing it. I'll probably get a Switch 2 for it. It will come out. It's scheduled to come out on the Nintendo Switch, and those are like down to like I saw somebody list one for $130, but I don't want to buy one because I still have a lot of games to play on my older consoles and stuff. Um, so, maybe, when if I get my act together for that, I'll play this. But yeah, Metroid Prime 4. I wanted to play the trilogy because it seemed like a fun set of games. But now, apparently, even though it sold over 1 million copies, the Metroid Prime trilogy is like super rare, annoyingly, to find. It's just a Nintendo Wii game. So, uphill battle for me. Maybe I should have bought it digitally, but I don't like buying stuff without the intention of playing it for a while. If I buy something, it's like I'm going to go in and play it that day. And now I just have too much of a backlog. Because it's like I was given some free stuff, and then games with gold, so it's like I started playing The Witcher, but wasn't really enjoying it, but want to finish it, but can't do it without. And then at a discount, going out of business sale, I got Forza Horizon, and then both Forza Horizon and Borderlands 2, I lost my progress on those, which is very annoying. And I wasn't even enjoying those games too much, but they still exist in the back of my mind. And then I bought Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, which isn't my type of game, but I wanted to beat it. Maybe I should sell it. But it was like I got it because it's like, well, it legitimizes my Wii U purchase, so I gotta play it. And so I struggled through that. I fought my way to the boss battle, and you can go to the boss battle without being prepared there, so it wasn't like I got my butt kicked and you can't beat it. You have to get like the Master Sword and stuff, so I need somebody. It's like I need somebody to beat these games with. And then I split Ghost of Tsushima with my brother 2020. Haven't touched it since. Like, I haven't even touched Ghost of Tsushima. Then, those are just the main ones. And then I started playing through Death Stranding because I'm, like, interested in that. But I haven't picked it up again for a while. And then, I got a couple of games for my Wii. Silent Hill Shattered Memories, that's a short game. Mad World, that's a short game. Super Mario Galaxy, not a short game, but it's like these are good for a collection to have, and they're like kind of tricky to find. So I got them, and now I just have a pile of games to play, which I haven't finished. And then I can't start them because I just feel like I'm wasting my time because I should be doing a job. Ugh. Dear Lord. Dear God, are you there? It's me, Will. Please get me a job. I might be getting just a freelance position, writing. Can't tell you where yet because I don't want to jinx it. But, more work is good work. And I hope I can just, like, start delivering for them quickly just so I can get more money. And just, get started on something. Ugh. I feel like I'm running my heels. I mean, this is season 4 here of the FilmGamer podcast. So, they announced a Legend of Zelda game where you actually play as Zelda. Echoes of Wisdom. They say mainline Zelda game, but if you look at the art style, it looks very traditional, top-down, kind of dealio. So yeah, you play as Princess Zelda. That's very cool. But this looks like, a Game Boy Pocket game come to life. So it's more of like the Switch grab and go side of it. I'm sure it'll be a great game, but it's not like 3D Zelda play as Zelda, which I would have thought. And then, you have a Super Mario Party, or sorry, Jamboree. Yeah, I was right. It is a Super Mario Party title. So the latest Mario Party installment, and I love Mario Party. I have Mario Party 10. There isn't a lot of content in there, and I want to get Mario Party 8, just because I like Mario Party. Um, but yeah, it feels like a waste because I never have anybody to play Mario Party with. Everybody's like, "Oh, I'll play Mario Kart, yay!" But Mario Party is boring to everybody but me. So if you're out there and you want to play Mario Party together, I'd love to play with you because I currently play with my nephew, and that controller stuff is like hard for him to do, and it's also difficult because I don't want to give him the main controller because he broke one of my controllers, and he's young, like he's like 5, and so I want him to learn on that controller, but I can't allow him to break my mainline controller because that will sink me. Like the Nintendo Wii U is geared, which is what I started him out on. It's geared toward kids, but the Nintendo Wii U controller, if you break it, your whole Wii is broken. Like it is, that controller is tied. You need that controller to make the whole console work. And then, the Xbox One controller is like $45. And then the PlayStation 4 controller is like, $75. And that's just where we're at. Yeah, they introduced a new Mario and Luigi game. See, they're fun. It's like, oh, the new art style. I don't know how this goes, so that's like interesting to me. Nintendo World Championships NES edition, that's great. A couple of other games that I'll skip through. More Nintendo Switch Sports, that's cool. Disney Illusion. I mean, I'm not gonna go through every single game, but like, I don't know, all of these games, it's so funny to me because Nintendo is a lot smaller than both Sony and Microsoft, and they like just constantly put out games. The best thing that they do, Among Us, best thing that they do was getting out of the technological arms race of like, we're not going to do cutting edge games. We're just going to maintain a reasonable scale. We're not going to lose money on our consoles because their games aren't going to be so expensive, and we'll be able to put out games at a decent clip. Like this is just a Wii game, Donkey Kong Country Returns. They're bringing it to Nintendo Switch because it's like an easy port. It's a port job. So they already came out with its sequel, Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, which I have on Wii U. That's a hard game to play. Another game that I haven't played, but yeah, good for Nintendo. Like they came out with Metroid Prime 4, which was a big gun. This game looks fun too, a Funko Pop game. See, it's just all stuff where, like, again, Luigi's Mansion 2 is like a, Luigi's Mansion 1 came out, and then Luigi's Mansion 1 came out for GameCube. Luigi's Mansion 2 was like 3DS, so this is the first that's on Switch, and then Luigi's Mansion 3 came out on Switch, so it was like an odd thing. So they're bringing it back. They'll eventually have to go back to 1, I believe, and put that out on Switch if they haven't already. Have no idea about the Metal Slug games. Darkest Dungeon, cool. Cool art styles on all of these. Like, these are handcrafted games that you're like, people who love this stuff spent time on. So even though I'm not like into it, I want to play it because it's like, well, this looks like somebody cared about the time that they spent on it. And this is sort of like the swan song for the Switch before the Nintendo Switch 2 comes out. So, I mean, that's very cool. I picked the wrong generation. Okay, I'm bitter. I picked the wrong generation to commit to Nintendo. I got a Nintendo 64 super late, and I got Mario Party 3, and that was really fun. And I've always enjoyed Nintendo games. And then I skipped the GameCube generation because I had a PlayStation 2, I had PlayStation 3 and 4, and Xboxes, 360 and 1. So I was like, before I got the Xbox One and PlayStation 4, I'm like, I'm gonna get a Nintendo Wii U, and I'm gonna, because it plays Wii games. And there's a way that you can hack them to play GameCube games and stuff. So I'm like, oh great, I'll catch up on all the games I missed and get games digitally that are for N64, and I'll be set. And I just bought the biggest flop that Nintendo had, and so they canceled it and then came out with the Switch, and the Switch was the one really that I should have gotten. But yeah, see, they have Lego Horizon Adventures here. Like, it's the Lego games are fun to play. I played with my nephew, you can see on my YouTube page, and they're just fun games to play. So, that's a game I'd play with my nephew. And then, Stray. This game, oh man, those graphics look very, very, oh, is this like the original? Yeah, it is, and it just doesn't look as good, but you get to play it. I have this in much higher definition on Xbox to rent from the library. I've rented it twice from the library, not even touched it either time. It was a Game of the Year nomination. It's right up my alley, and it's just about a cat who, is a stray cat, and you walk around, a futuristic city with it as it has like a little band on it. And it's a short game, easy to beat. If I beat it, I'd feel good about it. But like both times, I'm like, I sit down and I'm like, I don't have the time and stuff. But I have the time to check for System Shock, and then I play System Shock. I'm like, this isn't super fun. It's way more technical. So I mean, basically, yeah. Oh, Tales of the Shire, a Lord of the Rings game. How does it play? Like the kind of tune thing. Oh, it's like an RPG, like Animal Crossing. Yeah, good for them. And of course, an Ace Attorney game. I feel like they come out with those all the time. A lot of RPGs, Eastern RPGs and stuff. This game looks fun. Revenge of the Sun. Oh, it's another RPG. Jeez. Play a lot of RPGs in Japan. That's just how it is. So yeah. And then they end with Metroid Prime 4. So Nintendo, I would say, won E3, and the reason I would say that they won, and I'm just referring to E3 as just kind of a section of it. It's a shell of its former self. Not actually E3, but like Nintendo showed us stuff, Xbox showed us stuff, and PlayStation showed us stuff. I'd say Nintendo won just because they gave us the thing that we wanted, Metroid Prime 4. On Xbox, I wanted Gears 6. And they're giving it to us. And they're giving it to us, and it's like, oh, here's a couple of other games. And it's like, I see the way forward. And with Xbox, I just don't see that way forward. With PlayStation, I sort of see it, but it's more by default. And it's like, where's Uncharted 5? Where is Killzone 5? Where's, Resistance 4? Like, basically follow-ups to games that I've always wanted to play. Instead, they're like, Last of Us 3 maybe is starting at some time in the future, but we don't know when. And I just find that so irritating that, like, the creator of Naughty Dog is like, oh, I don't know, maybe I have one more game in me. Meanwhile, he's making the Last of Us TV show. And I'm just like, buddy, you're a video game developer. Make video games. Like, Uncharted isn't some sacred text where you have to worry about messing it up. We could have 5 Uncharted games by now. But, he took over that. And as a result, we can't have any more fun in video games. And that's what Nintendo has, where they have games that are fun. And they're like, oh, look at this concept. Here's the game. Here's this game. It's coming out in a year. With PlayStation, Xbox, it's like we're teasing a game and it's not coming out until 2026. And then it also plays exactly like the 4 games before it. So, yeah. I mean, video games, I feel like they're in a tough spot now. At least they are for me. I'll hopefully find my way back around to it. I just need that stability. I need to find that game that I absolutely fall in love with, that makes me fall in love with games again. Before, I was just playing Crash Bandicoot games, and then I played Bioshock, and I'm like, oh, this is cool. This is different. This is something that I can explore. And the last game that I really, really enjoyed, it's weird. I think it was Until Dawn, actually. And basically, there was this girl who invited me over to her house to play, and she had a PS4, and it was very generous of her. And I played Until Dawn with her, and I encouraged her to play, but she just wanted to see me play. Maybe she was worried I'd get mad if she like messed it up. It was a choose your own adventure game. Kaylin Nicholson actually played it on her YouTube page. I went to high school with her, and she does, she's a non-gamer, but she played through that. So that was cool to see if you're into that. Anyways, I played through that, and then I beat it, and then she was just kind of like, yeah, do you want to stay over? And I was like, no, I'm good. And then went home. And, in retrospect, of course, I wished that I'd stayed. I didn't like her, but I really wish that I did, because I remember thinking, like, when I first met her, it was like we had some interest, but she had some other stuff going on, and I just said to myself mentally, like, oh, if she, did this thing or changed this thing, I wonder if I'd like her more or something. And she didn't, like, I didn't say it, I never said it, but she, like, changed that thing. And then I encountered her later on, and I was really annoyed that I couldn't give myself, let myself, I don't know. I think that maybe she liked me. And perhaps I was, I don't know, selfish and not going out with her. I don't know. I will say this, in university, there was this girl who liked me, and I could tell that she liked me. And I wasn't into her, and I said to myself, okay, well, let me give it like 3 dates and see if I do. And I gave it 3 dates, and I didn't. And then when I told her of, like, in person, I'm sorry, I'm just not into it, she was later relayed to me that she was, like, absolutely heartbroken. So if I get into something with, like, no intention relationship wise of, like, this plane is gonna land, it's just, hard times, why go through with it? I generally know when I get into something relationship wise, and that goes for, like, non-romantic relationships, or work wise. I know from the beginning of, like, okay, I can commit to this or not. I usually know about everything, like, what I can do, what I can give, where something is going to go, and I'm very rarely surprised at that. So, that was me doing the one-off. So it's like, I tell you now, of like, oh, I wish that I had, pushed myself maybe a little outside of my comfort zone and done the thing. I knew or know how it was going to end. Wasn't going to end satisfyingly, so why bother? And then, you tell yourself, oh, the grass is greener if I'd done X, Y, or Z. And, the truth is, I feel we don't, as a species, give ourselves a lot of credit. Where, we think, oh, going back, oh, I made the wrong decision, I did that. When really, you don't want to say that the decision that you made at the time was the sound decision. It's easier to think that there could have been something better rather than accept the reality of what is, which is mundane. Anyways, that's getting pretty deep for that kind of episode. So I'll end it just because there are no technical issues that I had to really go through with. Although last week, the internet was out, can't do anything about that. Waited, came back on. Social media fights. I buried the hatchet with that Dave Lee guy. He had a kid, and I just congratulated him, and he was just like, thank you. So, we turned a new leaf. And that's how Season 4 is going. Episode 2, number 36 overall of the Film Gamer podcast. Thank you for being with me. I'm trying to do this video this week, and I'll see how it uploads. It might be very difficult for me. But thanks for tagging along with me. Hope I wasn't too annoying, too abrasive, too what have you. But yeah, thanks for listening and watching. As always, take care.